Thank you. I'd just like to quickly take this opportunity to thank the Launch team for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today, and the Council for coming here and listening to what I'm going to say. Now, I'm Tara. I'm a research scientist specialising in biotechnology. This is me, believe it or not, actually at work in the Australian bush. I work with a team that's interested in the discovery, characterisation, and then development of silk proteins. Now, I'm really well trained to tell you about what we can do, tell you how we do it. I can do that really well, but I'm really outside my comfort zone here today because I'm here to tell you about our dream, our vision about materials of the future. Now, since the dawn of man, we've been pursuing a way of manufacturing that's fundamentally not changed. It hasn't changed at all. The information that guides how we make, the shape and the form of the materials we make, come from the manufacturer. So the materials themselves are inert. The information comes from the manufacturer during the manufacturing process. But have you ever thought about the difference between the way that we make materials and the way that nature does it? Nature does it completely differently. Natural materials are full of information. A DNA molecule, it'll self-assemble into an intricate structure that allows it to catalyze difficult chemistries. Or an egg becomes a chicken. If I cut my arm, my body heals itself. Or a seed becomes a tree. This is very different from how we do it. So our vision, inspired by nature, is to make information encoding materials. What we want to do is transform how we think about materials and how we manufacture them. So we want to essentially make a material that can think, a material that can respond to the environment, or a material that can react based on the information that is within that material itself. Imagine if you have a dressing that you put on a chronic wound, a wound that's not going to heal. And the information to heal that wound is within that dressing itself. So the dressing senses the state of the wound, and then it treats it. So the information comes from the dressing rather than from the medical community. Now, where do you start on such an idea? How do you change 30,000-year-old habit? Obviously, you start from the very beginning. Now, the information in nature that nature uses is contained within protein molecules. Proteins are natural molecules. They contain all the information to build us and all the living things around us. Now, proteins are defined by a DNA sequence, and this is what gives them that control over the information. So DNA is a really good place to start. But we can't just start with any DNA sequence. We need a DNA sequence that encodes a protein that we can make on a large scale, a protein that we can make into different material forms that will sustain mechanical load. And for our idea, for our vision, we need to be able to put information into that protein. So what we did is we went out and we looked through the natural world for suitable templates for this vision of ours. And we found many, many remarkable materials. There's so many things that are out there that are truly incredible. But one of them really stood out in these three different areas. And that was the silk of honeybee. Now, most people don't even know that bees make silk. It's the white fibrous material that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. What happens is each larval generation spins a silken cocoon, and the silk accumulates as the hive matures, and it provides both thermal and mechanical stability to the hive. If you didn't have the silk, then the hive would collapse, the hive would melt. So we took the DNA from the bees and we put it into bacteria. Now this allows us two things. We can then make it in large amounts, and then that gives us the control. We can then change the protein sequence through modifying the DNA. And we made a lot of the protein, and we generated these beautiful fibers that you can see on the screen here. These fibers are flexible. We can knit them into different shapes. and they show properties, 100% extension to break. We could also make nanofibers. Now, these are 200 nanometers across, so there's 100 of these make up a single human hair. We could make three-dimensional scaffolds. Now, we've demonstrated that this material is biocompatible, it's biodegradable, it's got low immunogenicity. And we can imagine putting information into these sponges, such as cell binding sites, sites that direct hierarchical assembly of cells, as you would require for growing organs for regenerative medicine. We also made transparent films. Now, these films in themselves may be useful for applications such as wound dressing, but we can imagine putting information into this protein to add functionality, to add more to these. For example, making them antimicrobial, making them have sensing so they can sense the state of the wound, so they can signal the state of the wound, so that they become biodegradable. You put your dressing on, and then after 7 days, it absorbs into the body, meaning that you no longer have to rip the wound dressing off. But most importantly, we went back to nature and we looked at related silk proteins, and then that told us precisely where we can add information through this protein sequence without compromising its ability to form into material forms, without losing any of the mechanical properties. So where are we now? So we've identified an ideal template to generate information encoding materials. We've demonstrated that we can make it sustainably at high levels. We've demonstrated that we can make it into various material forms that are useful for us to use. And most importantly, we've demonstrated that it can carry information. So we believe that this is an excellent template for our vision to drive a potential paradigm shift in how we look at materials in the future. So what does the future look like? Well, we've generated current materials, and these could be useful for a range of applications now. For example, as I was saying, wound dressings, we can entrap various compounds within these dressings that will make them functional here and now. And then we can add information into this to make new generation materials. For example, wound dressings that dissolve after 7 days. This is very important that we move away from having to remove a dressing from a wound. And then we envisage adding in more and more information into this. We keep adding in information until we end up with materials that do sense, that do react, that do have the information that you need to carry out these difficult functions. So I'm based at CSIRO. This is Australia's national research organisation, where my laboratories are located in Canberra, but CSIRO has some 58 different sites across the nation. We're a multidisciplinary, mission-driven organisation with a proven track record in innovation. Now, CSIRO is not a commercialisation organisation. Rather, we seek to create impact for our technologies by partnering with industry. So normally, we take our technologies to the proof of concept stage, and then we work with industry to develop products. And this is important because it ensures that our products are developed in line with industry needs and that there is a path to market for them. And essentially, if industry is not interested in our technologies, then CSIRO will move its resources somewhere else. So with the help of Mickey, Jeff, and Holly, we've developed our silk technology to the stage where we do have first-generation products. And we're just starting an industry engagement stage with Lionel, who is here with me today, and Alan Green, our science leader. So we're here to ask your help in how do we get traction for our existing materials. This is important that there's some recognition of these materials for us. What are the key markets, particularly in the medical and the textile areas, that we should be focusing on? And then for our next and ultimately our future generation materials, what sort of information should we be putting into these first generation products? What is it that industry needs? So with that, I'll finish. Thank you very much.